We can be killed in the UK at any time. This is a Sikh activist fears for his life after being named on Indians' hit list. We're going to read into this exclusive from Sky News, you guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with an exclusive from Sky News with the headline of "We can be killed in the UK at any time." This is a Sikh activist fears for his life after being named on Indians' hit list. Kulwant Singh Mothada supports a Sikh homeland separate from India called Khalistan, one of several activists, some of whom are dead, accused of violating terror laws by India's counter-terrorist department. And he spoke to Sky News in his first TV interview. Guys, while you're here, before I share my initial thoughts, if you can hit the like button and share this across social media so others are notified of this video. So I covered a story about when first talked about Sikhs in the UK, and in general about whether or not that they should have their own homeland within a part of India. And some of you disagreed. Some of you weren't 100% sure. In that video, some of you thought that maybe that, but I didn't see too many people in favour of a Sikh homeland. Simply and to try and make, I'm not sure whether it was right or wrong to make a comparison to what's happening with regards to in the Middle East, with regards to obviously the creation of a state for Israel, for example. But so obviously this person here, this is someone that is without a doubt that the Indian government wants dead. Because simply what he wants a homeland for Sikhs, and in the land of Khalistan. And by the way, I'm going to mispronounce the name, so I'm just going to say apologise in advance. And I understand that, and my position has changed a little bit. I'm not 100% convinced whether or not now maybe a homeland would be a good thing, but also part of me is like, well, you know, is it just a case of they should have their own piece of land in the world because of their religion, or it should be a case of they should just be left to live their lives and spread their religion where they are, and it's a choice of whether people want to embrace it or not. And I think same thing about Christianity, Muslim, whatever religious belief, God or not God that you choose to believe in. It should be a choice of whether you want to be a part of that or not. And I don't think I don't agree with the killing of this man. Yes, you can agree to disagree with his personal feelings about the history and that of India, and yes, there is a great deal of history behind this, but there's no justification, in my opinion, for killing this person in any way, shape or form. Now we have to state that we don't know 100% for certain. This is what he's claiming. The Indian government there may be a response from the Indian government at the end of this article, in his thoughts on this, so stating that they're not targeting this person, but it's not really good right now in India. And I've covered a couple of stories, whether it's on the Snowflake Corner, on Worldnews Land, or even on my Rumble content, where I've talked about India and concerned about, obviously this year specifically, the Indian election, about how they are, the President Modi has really enforced Hinduism and really kind of pushed out, a lot of other religions are very much becoming more and more minorities. Yes, I know the vast majority of India is of Hindu. There's no, I'm not debating that at all. But other religions in the country should still be respected and should not be treated indifferently just because of their religious beliefs. And we are seeing that with a lot of the Muslim communities in India are being, let's say, mistreated, shall we say, in India. There have been many instances taken place there where they're treated indifferently simply because of their religious beliefs. And Sikhs there as well are also concerned about their well-being. Now, I would say, obviously, there were also a couple of comments on that video as well, where some people were saying, it's not our business, basically. Well, if someone gets murdered in your street, someone living in the UK, it becomes our problem because it's in our country. So it is our problem if it happens here. I would say that if he's here and he's living in this country and he is targeted, then he shouldn't have to be concerned about his well-being. He should be safe here. And he shouldn't have to fear for his life here. The same with those living in Canada or America, because I know there's some living in Canada and America as well, and they should not have to fear for their lives in any way, shape, or form. And that should not be a concern for them, no matter what India says. Their rights have to be protected. Now, whether or not, like I said, you don't know about whether we want to agree or disagree with the homeland, but if something like this happens if a murder happens on your doorstep, it is a problem for the UK government. It is a problem for the British, whether you like it or not, because it's happened here. It shouldn't have happened here. This person shouldn't have been given their lives. And please don't go in the comments saying he should be deported, because let's not go down that road now, guys. Let's not. Anyway, let's read his story, guys, just to get a better understanding, because I still remember this channel is also about learning together as well. So, Kulwant Singh Mothada is afraid for his life. He spends much of his day checking the 4 CCTV feeds that cover his house. When he drives to work, he regularly changes his car and route. This is a quiet suburb of Wolverhampton, grey and wet when I visit. It is hard to imagine much ever happening here. But Mr. Mothada is fearful that even in these sleepy streets, he could be assassinated by the Indian state, and he has good reason to worry. Others are already dead. The hit list was shown on TV with our pictures, and our faces have been seen worldwide, Mr. Mothada tells Sky News in his first televised interview. So, I don't think he should be sharing this, because this will actually shouldn't be sharing really. Obviously his home address is invisible, but this picture here, you shouldn't be giving anything away about your home location. If I'm absolutely want to make clear, especially if you feel your life is in danger. So I'm a lot more cautious than before, because we can be killed here in the UK at any time. The hit list is a charge sheet drawn up by the Indian National Investigation Agency, the NIA. The country's counter-terrorist department against 16 individuals, all accused of violating terror laws. 6 of them live in the UK. Last year, Mr. Mothada was watching an Indian television channel when news report came that in bombastic style it named enemies of the state, and Mr. Mothada was one of them. Of course, I was shocked that they shown the report on TV with my picture, he says. I know we've become the government's targets, so that does not mean we are safe and we can get on with our day-to-day as normal. Whenever we go outside or travel, we are very careful, and since then we haven't left the country because the Indian government has given us such a big threat. Mr. Mothada, 62, is an activist who supports a Sikh homeland separate from India called Khalistan. So others were on the list, several of whom are now dead. In May last year, Paramjit Singh Panjwar was gunned down in Lahore, Pakistan. 6 weeks later, Hardeep Singh Nijar was shot dead outside of Gurdwara, a Sikh place of worship in Vancouver. The Canadian government caused a diplomatic incident when it claimed publicly, accusing India of being behind the assassination, a claim vigorously denied by India. The same month, the FBI foiled an alleged plot to assassinate another activist on the list, Gurpatwant Singh Pannun. You guys seen a pattern there? The Department of Justice says the person who allegedly tried to organise the killings said, "We have so many targets." Also, that in the same June, activist Sikh Khanda, a British activist, died suddenly. You can see the list here, guys, of people who have been targeted or killed by the Indian government, and this is because they don't want the Hindu government. Obviously, they're claiming terrorist charges here. Now, specifically, what are the terrorist charges? Well, they haven't really been very clear about them here. But one of the biggest gripes that the Indian government has is that they do not want, in any way, shape, or form, any kind of separation in India. They do not want any kind of homeland. They don't. I won't go as far to say all Sikhs, but they consider those who are actively trying to undermine India and its government. They consider them a huge threat, and will do anything to ensure that they disappear, shall we say. Allegedly. Police insist there was no evidence of anything other than natural causes, but many Sikh activist communities think the death is suspicious. Mr. Mothada is saying that the government is looking to assassinate anyone outside the country who raises their voices for human rights violations and justice. This to ensure that we're not able to raise our voices in international countries. Yeah, that's what they don't want. They don't want people raising their voices. And he thinks that the UK, unlike Canada and the US, is ignoring the issue to appease India. Yeah, I think, remember, our Prime Minister has connections to India as well. I do wonder if Keir Starmer obviously does, if he does become the Prime Minister, how he would approach this position. How would Labour approach this position? Would they approach it in the same way as Canada and the US? I think is a question. He said, since the hit list was released, I've been feeling insecure, and that something may happen in the future. If I'm assassinated, then it's the British government's total responsibility. Sky News asked the Indian High Court Commission for comment. A press officer acknowledged the request, but said it would not be possible to supply a response before publication because of the coordination of various different government departments. I'm a law-abiding citizen. The NIA alleges that the organisation Mr. Mothada is part of, Sikhs for Justice, is a radical extremist group attempting to propaganda segregation as well as enmity on the grounds of region and religion, to radicalise, impersonate youth, to cause disturbance to peace and harmony, and to raise funds for terrorist activity. I put that to Mr. Mothada. He replies, I live here in the UK and I'm a law-abiding citizen. The United Nations gives us the right of self-determination. All we do is raise our voices peacefully on how Sikh communities are treated in Punjab. It is an extremely contentious issue, even in the UK. A protest outside the Indian High Court Commission last June turned violent, although Mr. Mothada said this was because of another group. What other group? Exactly. A violent, complex history. But in India, the 1970s and 1980s, some part of the campaign for a separate Sikh state in the province of Punjab did result in conflict. The armed insurgency was met by a harsh government crackdown. Thousands were killed. In 1984, Indian forces stormed the Golden Temple, the holiest Sikh shrine in Amsterdam, where separatists had holed up hundreds, possibly thousands died. Months later, the Prime Minister Indira Gandhi was assassinated by her two Sikh bodyguards, which led to a series of bloody anti-Sikh riots. The insurgency largely petered out inside Punjab by the 1990s, but the Khalistan movement lived on mostly vocally in Sikh diasporas in countries like the US, Canada and the UK. The history is very much alive and still very complex even in Britain. And a half an hour drive from Mr. Mothada's house in Gurpatwant, Gurdwara, a large place of worship in Surrey, Birmingham, some 25,000 people attend each week. Its president, Khalistan Dal, showed me around, stopping to show points of rows of photos of the war crying the martyrs of the Sikh homeland Khalistan. Among them are some of the victims of the Golden Temple massacre. But photos of the two assassins of India's Gandhi are also proudly displayed. I put it to Mr. Dully that many would class those men as terrorists, and that hanging their photos supports the Indian position, and that the Khalistan movement is not simply about peaceful protest but also encouraging political violence. One man terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, Mr. Dole has said. These guys stood up when the Indian government was going around from village to village and attacking the Golden Temple. They went around from village to village to eliminate anyone who looked like a Sikh. As Sikhs, we're supposed to stand up against atrocities and defend others. But if we can't defend ourselves, then we can't defend others. It was a very bad time, 35, 40 years ago, and for us it's still continuing. People aren't safe in India, and if they speak up, if they're vocal, they're attacked. And that fear is now felt in the UK, Mr. Dahl said. The Sikhs are worried and upset, and even in this current climate, Sikhs are being targeted across borders in different countries. They're concerned about the British government not speaking up about it. Spokesperson for the Home Office told Sky News the UK is proud of its diverse communities and British Sikhs contribute immensely to the strength of our society. They continuously assess potential threats in the UK and take the protections of individual rights, freedoms and the safety of the UK very seriously. Anyone who believes that a crime has been committed or concerned that their safety should contact the police. Back in Wolverhampton, all the precautions Khalistan Singh Mothada is taking as he remains defiant and committed to his activism. I want to give a message to the Indian government and agencies on behalf of the Sikh community. You cannot silence mine or the Sikh community's voice by giving death threats or sharing hit lists, he has said. It's very. I want to make some points obviously very clear. You know, the story about these. Obviously, it's extremely touchy, sensitive subject to talk about. Now, obviously, like I said at the start of the video, whatever you want to believe about whether or not they should be entitled to having a homeland or not is obviously up for debate, and I believe that's one that will be debated from time to time to come. But if they're here in the UK, they should be left alone here in the UK and left to go about their lives. And if they're speaking of atrocities and they have evidence to prove it, then let them speak of atrocities and have evidence to prove it and share it on social media so that people can be aware of it from the Sikhs' point of view. But if the Indian government saying that such thing is not happening, then show it from their point of view. Show that they have moved on. Show that they are more divisive and more inclusive. Show that I would say to the Indian government. Show that you're not targeting Sikhs. Show that show the evidence that they are actually show us the evidence that they are a huge threat to India itself. Show us that they are doing these terrorist activities. Have they? Do you have evidence that they have caused terrorist activities, in particular in India lately? Lately, I'm talking about in recent, like the last 10 years. Is there evidence that supports these claims? Obviously, there was one obviously report there we saw where they claimed that they were behind it, and they're claiming it was another group. Obviously, we don't know. Obviously, we're not 100% sure on that. But what I will say is that Sikhs should be having a right to not be feared of any of their lives in any way, shape, or form, and I think that should be the same for those living in India. They should not have to fear for their lives in any way, shape, or form as well. This is a story that probably will not be the last time we hear about this. Obviously, I am concerned about the direction that India is going, because I have covered numerous stories about the country itself and where it is heading with its current president, and it will be one that we'll be talking about again. I am, part of me is torn as well, guys, because like India, there is a part of me that feels that India is just trying to protect itself, but at the same time, Sikhs should not have to fear for their lives as well. So I am a little bit torn. I'm not going to lie to you guys. But what do you guys honestly think? What do you think about Sikhs in the UK? Should they have to fear for their lives? Should they just be allowed to live peacefully? Should they be allowed to live peacefully here, just like they do in the US and Canada? Do they have a point? Have they made fair arguments to you? Let me know what your thoughts are about this in the comments section down below. If you found this video interesting, please hit the like button and share it across social media so others are notified of this video, and subscribe because it really does help support the channel. And if you want to financially support me in the work I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p, or joining me on Patreon or Rumble for exclusive content there as well. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.